In the Netherlands right now, there is massive protests against the government by farmers, right? These farmers are trying to protect their livelihoods at all costs. They're blocking distribution centers. They're working with people in the fisheries industry by blocking ports. They're blocking the border crossings where, with the help of truckers. All this is going down in the Netherlands because the government there is trying to push these green policies because of climate change. Right? They're reducing the types of fertilizers that can be used. They're reducing livestock that can be had in a farm, all to reduce the nitrogen levels. And this is impacting these farmers who in the Netherlands have been sometimes for generations doing the same type of practices, right? They're impacting their businesses, their way of life, all at the behest of organizations like the World Economic Forum and all these climate organizations who are pushing these green policies, right? Pushing governments, pushing bureaucrats to implement these type of woke agendas. It's just not on. And that's why these people are out there making their voices heard. And the Dutch police are shaming themselves because the Dutch police at the moment are just interfering in peaceful protests, peaceful demonstrations by farmers who really are protesting against something that impacts them by directly stopping the means of production that they themselves are a part of. This is by blocking distribution centers. These things are happening community-wide right now because they are concerned of the impact that these policies will have at a community level all around the country. And that's why there's such support for this, even though the government tries to paint it as like there is no support, even though the media will not cover these issues, particularly the global media, to show what the government's actually doing to these farmers as they're trying to have their voices heard. Shameful stuff, even shooting at farmers, pulling out guns against protesters. Even a 16-year-old kid was shot at by the police. He was captured on video. He was then later arrested and released after, thousands of farmers rocked up at the police station with their tractors and so on, and he was let go. So these are the things which are happening in Netherlands. And these are the types of impacts government policies can have on people and the farmers in countries all around the world. And we've seen this before, right? In Sri Lanka, a country that's completely collapsed at the moment, economically, financially, right? And there's many reasons for this economic collapse. But one of the reasons, right, happened last year when the government overnight pushed everyone to ban chemical fertilizer in that country, right? And then start using organic fertilizers. They went green, they went woke, and it didn't work, right? The industry was slaughtered overnight, right? The crop yield for that year has been devastating. A country like Sri Lanka, who has agricultural ability to sustain itself, was no longer able to after they switched to using organic fertilizers, right? It just wasn't working in Sri Lanka, right? In relation to the types of farming that's required to sustain that country. And this was all done in the name of all this green stuff, right, to protect the climate and so on. The government had to reverse all that because it was so devastating to the farmers there that it started impacting the whole country. And that's what you're going to see in the Netherlands if this stuff goes through, and that's what you're going to see all around the world when they try to push for these things. It's going to impact the everyday person, right? And when the farmers have to sell up eventually, when they're driven out of business, when all these things happen, corporations and of course the government will come in. They'll purchase these lands, they'll purchase these properties, they'll turn them into developments, they'll use it for other purposes, right? You got Bill Gates buying all sorts of farmland around the world. So these things are happening in our lifetime. And it's very important right now, the protest that's happening in the Netherlands, because eyes and ears should be glued to what these farmers are saying and, what they're doing to try to stop this from happening to their industry. We should all be on alert for these things happening in our countries as well. This new type of, we have to save the planet, so therefore we have to stop the way that we farm. We have to change the way that we consume meat. We have to eat bugs, right? These things that they're saying and doing are all tied in together. And all of this right now, in the West at least, is going down in the Netherlands. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. And I think that everyone should be keeping an eye on what's happening with the farmers' protest in the Netherlands.